This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
When I wake up, well, I know I'm gonna be the man who wakes up next to you. When I go out, yeah, I know I'm gonna be the man who goes along with you.
Please be Nation, welcome back to another edition of the movie review of the day here on the Pop Experience. I am Steve Riddle, back again for another go round, and today we're going to go modern with our episode and talk about a film that's just come out very recently, kind of one of the first kind of big films of the. Now that we're in May, even though it is not technically summer yet, this is pretty much the summer season. And well, our biggest film of the month has not yet come out. This one I'm about to talk about is actually one that's I'll be honest. When I first saw the trailer for it, I was very curious about it. Thinking, is this going to be any good? But it surprised me very much so, and I'm looking forward to talking about it here with you. The film I'm going to be doing for you today is The Sheep Detectives. It was released back on May 8th, 2026, so very recently. Budget $75 million. Box office as of this recording, $28 million, so we'll see how it ends up doing going forward. It stars live-action cast of Hugh Jackman, Nicholas Braun, Nicholas Glazentine, Molly Gordon, Hong Chow, Emma Thompson, and the voices of Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Bryan Cranston, Chris O'Dowd, Regina Hall, and Sir Patrick Stewart. It is about a flock of sheep who find out that their shepherd has been murdered, and using the knowledge that they have from the various murder mystery novels that he would read them throughout the years, they attempt to deduce who it was that who murdered their shepherd, while uncovering a deeper web throughout the town. So, if you have not watched the film yet, I definitely recommend doing so. Not just because I think it's because of the grade I'm about to give it, but because obviously if you don't want to be spoiled by this, go ahead and watch that first and then come back here. So this is basically your alert here to say that spoilers coming in 3, 2, 1. So now we will go ahead and do what I normally do, and that is talk about the three things. Start with the 3 things that worked and 3 things that didn't work. So 3 things that worked. Number 1, the whole idea of these, because obviously, sheep are considered very, not intelligent, just follow blindly. You always see that expression, follow like a flock of sheep, that sort of thing. But kind of see them, turn that around here with, particularly with Lily, who's kind of the head sheep, trying to solve this mystery. I thought was really well done. And then you have kind of the Sebastian, it says he's a leader sheep. He has the horns on him, so he's not a ram per se. He is a leader sheep. Kind of trying to let these. So I will just say this. So the 3 main sheep are Sebastian, Lily, and Mapple, and they're the ones that are trying to figure out this. To solve the mystery here, and because Sebastian has been, wandering most of his life, he has no problem going into town and everything. But we saw, for a little bit, we saw Lily and Mapple have some issues, but they eventually are able to come together. But the point I'm making about it is that, these sheep are, have always kind of just trained themselves to not recognize when bad things happen. They always just say we'll just forget about it and then never talk about it again. And that works for all of them except for Mapple, who has maintained all these memories and has basically carried this with them throughout their life. And at one point, towards the very end, Lily kind of realizes what Mapple has been having to go through, having to carry all this by himself, and you can definitely tell she feels guilty about it. And because at one point, they're afraid that they're going to forget about George, and Mappo kind of tells her, it's not about, yeah, you remember the good and the bad times, but eventually the memories of the good outweigh the memories of the bad. So I thought that was really, really well done. How they kind of, because they made you really sympathize with these sheep, and root them on in their journey. So I do think that was really well done. Number two, the little small sheep that we see throughout the course of the film, who tries to fit in with everyone, but nobody wants him because he's apparently he's a winter lamb, which they don't because normally sheep are born in the spring, and winter lambs are kind of always kind of pushed aside and kind of ignored, and we come to find out that Sebastian himself was a winter lamb, and he kind of and I think Lily, kind of without realizing it, is so headstrong in this position, because she's been led to believe she's the smartest sheep in the group, and because she's because of figuring out these mysteries, but and Sebastian, I think, tries to tell her throughout the whole course of the film that there's more to it, than what than what you think, and for this like little baby cow, this baby lamb to, in essence, be the one to figure it out, kind of solve it in the end, I thought was really nicely done. And of course, when we tie into the humans, George's daughter, Rebecca, who had come into town for her father's funeral, she's also kind of described as a winter lamb. So I thought that was, again, really well done. And then seeing this baby lamb kind of be accepted at the end, I thought was really, really nice. So I do want to see that as well. And then number three, obviously, when you look at Tim Derry, the policeman of this Denbrook is called, yeah, Denbrook. It's clear he's not had to deal with a lot of major incidents because he is kind of aloof and everything. But seeing him kind of gradually figure this case out and kind of narrow everything down, and one of the main plots is that in the will that was found, George refers to everybody, the main people in the town, by these different names. So the main characters here are his daughter Rebecca, as I mentioned, the butcher Ham, yeah, nice name there. Caleb Murrow, another shepherd who had been leasing his land to George. Beth, the innkeeper, and then we have Lydia, who was George's lawyer. And then the mysterious son that we don't see, what was his name? Peter. And they're described in the will as a fool, a bad shepherd, a winter lamb, and two murderers, but we don't specify, George doesn't specify who is who. And at first glance, you probably think you have an idea of who is who, but then as the film goes on, you kind of realize, oh, wait a minute, they're not not what we think they are. And I forgot to mention the Reverend Hillcoat, the priest, and seeing Tim kind of come to work this mystery out with the with the assistance of the sheep. And I do want to touch on too, another thing I know is the fact that since this is a live action film, this isn't one of those universes where humans can actually hear the sheep talk, can hear sheep talking and understand them. This is where, sheep can only speak to themselves, and to humans, they just sound like normal bas. So I do want to mention that. And then him figuring out at the end, which again, spoiler alert, we find out that Peter has in fact been in town the whole time, under the guise of a reporter named Elliot Matthews. And seeing Tim kind of figure it all out and realizing, because at one point he pegs Rebecca as the murderer, but thanks to some little hints there given by the sheep, he realizes that it's not her. It is actually it is Peter / Elliot. So, excuse me. Again, kind of him coming to that conclusion. It really showed his growth because, like I said at the beginning, you think he's just this kind of aloof fool, as he eventually called himself, but then you kind of realize, the dude's a lot smarter than he appears, and for him to kind of get this little big moment at the end, I thought was really well done. So kudos to the filmmakers for that. And now we'll go on to the 3 things that didn't work, which I'll be honest, there wasn't much that didn't work in this film, but I do have a couple of things. Number one, I wish we would have gotten to know a little bit more about some of these townspeople. Like we know a little bit about them. We know that Hillcoat was the one who because George had one point after his wife had died, George had put his children up for adoption, and he was trying to, and the reason he was paying Hillcoat was so that he can get information about him. He obviously has a very strained relationship with Caleb. He's not a big fan of Ham because as we find out, George is a vegetarian. And then apparently he and Beth tried to have were in a relationship, but George just couldn't move on from his from his wife, and Beth kind of resented him for it. So everybody has a little bit of a motive here, but again, we don't see a lot of them. Like we do, of them, the most we see of is Caleb, because we eventually find out one of the big plot lines is that if the will, because the will that was found is basically that we find out that George had created this medicine for the sheep for what's called ORF, which is a disease that's found in sheep, and he had sold the patent for like $30 million. And he was going to leave it all to Rebecca, and that kind of leads everyone to suspect that Rebecca was the one that killed him. And again, I feel like we don't. But again, the point I'm trying to make is that I don't feel like we got enough of these some of these human characters. And then that actually kind of bleeds into my second point that I thought didn't work was, really, aside from Lily, Sebastian, and Mappa, we don't really know much about these. Don't get into it with these other sheep. Like we do know a few of them, but we just we see them briefly throughout the course of the film. But there's no real anything. All the focus is on those 3 main sheep, and we don't hear a lot. About these other sheep. These are some pretty funny sheep, and particularly you got. Reggie and Ronnie, the twins, which like to ram things, and I feel like we could have gotten a little bit more out of those sheep there as well. So, and then number 3, I wonder if the release date for this film is going to hurt it in the long run, because when you think about it, so this film came out, like I said, on May 8th, and the only other film that kind of came out, so there were 2 other films that came out against Mortal Kombat 2, and apparently a concert movie with Billie Eilish. And, this is, second week of May is usually kind of the dredge of the month, even though you can argue this year that the first weekend of May have been the dredge, but considering that for Memorial Day weekend, we got The Mandalorian and Grogu, which is going to obviously be, I'm sure, going to be extremely well done, extremely successful. You kind of wonder if this film had been released in April or maybe even March, if it would have had a little bit more of a success rate. So, because this might be a film that I don't think gets the love that it deserves when it's first out. This is one that I think might get a lot more love when it goes out on streaming. Which is unfortunate, because I think it actually is, again, a really good film, and I feel like it's going to be one of those ones that just kind of gets lost in the shuffle of the month. So, maybe they could have behooved themselves to move the release to either an earlier time or maybe even a later time. So, but we'll see what happens. Again, kind of a just something that I wanted to mention. Now we'll go ahead and go into our awards. My MVP of the film, again, some good performances in there. I really want to give it to Hugh Jackman, even though he's only in the film very briefly. He's in there in the beginning, and then, after he gets killed, we only see him in flashbacks. So, I actually am going to go with Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who voiced Lily. I thought she was really, really good in that role. That's definitely a role that could that's good for her. When you think of her, you think of some of the other. Obviously is hearing Elaine from Seinfeld voice a sheep. I thought is interesting, but I thought she did a really good job. Lily wouldn't be my favorite character though. My favorite character is Sebastian, voiced by Bryan Cranston. I thought he, like I said, he's kind of like that, protective force. Like even though, and his backstory is really sad. Like he was part of this carnival. He, and then he was, forced to fight dogs for money, and then he gets saved by George. And then, like I said, we find out that he was born in the winter. So, he kind of is. He's definitely very proud of being a winter lamb. He tries to kind of turn Lily's opinion of winter lambs on that, and then he ultimately does sacrifice himself at the end by getting by taking out the two guard dogs on Kayla's farm there before so that Lily and Mapple can escape. So I really liked him. I think he was definitely the best character. My least favorite character, I think it would have to be Beth, the innkeeper, who, I mean, she's definitely a bit of a bitch. No, pardon my French, but there's that moment where we see George trying to mail a letter to Rebecca, and Beth intercepts it. Of course, thinking Rebecca is like another lover or somebody, not realizing that she's actually George's daughter. She does redeem herself there at the end when she kind of apologizes to Rebecca and gives her the letter. But she just comes off really annoying throughout the course of the film. So she definitely was not my favorite character. My favorite scene, there's some really good scenes in here, particularly, again, anytime we get to see the sheep. But my favorite scene would actually have to be at the very end where Tim realizes he's made a mistake, accusing Rebecca, and through the process of, figuring everything, of deduction, he then realizes that it is, in fact, Elliot, aka Peter, and coming to that conclusion, like where it's like, the blue of the medicine coupled with the yellow in the hair dye that Elliot was using turned George's hand green, and that's how it came to be. How Tim was able to figure everything out. I thought that was, again, a very, very well done scene for Tim to eventually kind of basically play the hero and get the bad guy in the end. So really well done there. And then final grade, again, I thought this was a really fun film. I had very low expectations for it when I went in, and I was very pleasantly surprised with how well it was done. I thought the mix of obviously the CGI, a little bit of CGI with the sheep, I thought, was really well done. And, they gave the sheep all personalities, which I thought was good. Made you sympathetic for them. They really, the mystery I thought was really well done with a really great payoff at the end. So I'm not going to go perfect because I don't think it is quite that, but I am going to go 9 out of 10. I think, when we look back at the summer schedule this year, I think this is one of those films that's going to kind of get remembered for being better than I think people think it was or thought it was. And like I said, I think this might be one that does a lot better on streaming than it does in the theaters. So we'll see what happens when the film does eventually leave theaters. So. But that's going to do it for me. Thank you for listening. Thank you for continuing to support us. We are closing in on 100 episodes, which we will hit this week. So that's very exciting. Crazy to think we're already at 100 episodes, but I'm looking forward to that. And I'm looking forward to seeing what we got throughout the summer as we hit some of these other big summer blockbusters in between our theme weeks. So be on the lookout for that and continue to support us. With that, I am Steve Riddle. This has been the movie review of the day here on the Pop Experience, and we'll see you next time.